Welcome, everyone. It is so great to be here with you. I already recognize some familiar faces, but also see some new folks here, which is always exciting. My name is Emily Mithner, and I'm the founder and CEO of FindSpark, and I'd like to welcome you to our Career Confidence online and IRL, a networking workshop. Of course, I always like to say thank you so much for being here. I know there are a lot of different things you could be doing on a Monday night, so cheers to you for taking the time to network with your peers during this event and also learn some new tips and tricks that can help you within your career. So, a little bit about FindSpark and our story. So, I started FindSpark because as a young creative myself, I found that there weren't a lot of great career resources, or really any at all, that were specifically geared towards young creatives and people who wanted to pursue creative careers or do things within creative sectors. And I also found that after I graduated without a job, like many of us do, I found that networking and using social media and personal branding was incredibly powerful and useful for me. And so I wanted to start something that really pushed the importance of networking online and offline and how much that can help your career. So, since 2011, we've hosted over 100 programs for over 9,000 people, and the goal is always to get you one step closer to your dream career through the people that you meet and the things that you learn. And we do all sorts of workshops and events, small and large. Another one of our really big goals is to help you understand all the different types of companies and opportunities that are out there. Oftentimes, I know when you have a certain major in school, you're fed the same sort of opportunities at the same companies over and over again. But we want you to be aware that, of course, there are the big companies, but there are also startups. And what about being a freelancer or an entrepreneur and starting your own business? So we aim to get you in front of all different types of creatives who come from all walks of life, who have had all different types of career paths to really show you that there's no one way of doing things. So we also launched premium membership in February of this year, and I wanted to just share a few stories of some of our premium members and what's happened to them as a result of being involved. So we started premium membership for people who really loved coming to our events and wanted to take advantage of that and other resources like our mentorship program and premium e-guides and other exclusive events. So Zuli here on the left joined us this summer, and she came to a handful of our events, including our Summer Opportunity Mixer, where she met lots of great employers and also included her resume in our digital resume book. And because of that, she got an email from Madison Square Garden, who she didn't actually meet at the event, but they saw her resume in the book and offered her a full-time paid internship in their photography and design department. So Zuli will be starting there at Madison Square Garden this month. Zach Perellis is an example of a premium member who is not located in New York. He's actually in Wisconsin, one of our first members, huge supporters, and he's really taken advantage of being a premium member by coming to events, watching our videos, using priority support, and he's actually done something really smart, which last spring break, he organized a trip for himself to New York City, and while he was here, we were able to connect him with one of our speaker alumni, Melissa Ohm, who is a photographer at New York Magazine, and she agreed to meet up with him for an informational interview and showed him around the New York Magazine offices very last minute, and that was really exciting. And Zach is coming to our conference this October, so we're really excited to meet him in person. And then last we have Urvashi, and she came to us as a career changer looking to break into the digital marketing field, and she came to a ton of our events, which as a premium member you get discounts to all of them. And she let us know a few months back that thanks to a lot of the people she met, who she got some freelance work with and advice from, and the things that she learned, she credited that to helping her land a new position at Everyday Health as a digital analyst. So we're really excited to again, have premium membership for people who really want to get involved in the FindSpark community and take advantage of all the networking opportunities that we have available. So I have some stuff prepared, as always, for this talk, but I want to, of course, let you know that we'll have time for Q&A at the end, so I want to be able to answer everyone's questions. So please do save your questions for the end. You can chat them to myself privately, just to the presenter, which is me, or you can chat them to the entire group. And of course, encourage you to share your favorite tips and things that you're learning with the hashtag FindSpark, because we are going to be giving away premium membership to somebody who tweets that during the night. So I wanted to start off by just giving you a few things to think about high level here when it comes to networking. The first thing is preferences, and I've brought this up in a lot of my talks, but I think it's really, really important. And that is remembering that everybody you're reaching out to in any way, shape, or form within your career, whether it be recruiters, your peers, trying to get an informational interview, everybody has their own preferences. So I'm not able to give you a subject line that will always be opened or a tweet that will always get responded to. I can just give you stories and advice and tools to give you the best possible tips and resources to be able to do this outreach and feel confident in it. But you have to remember that there are some people who are not on certain platforms. There are some people who only use networking or only use LinkedIn for people they've met in real life. There are people who don't like to follow up from people they meet at networking events. All sorts of weird and strange things you will learn about people throughout your career. So it's just important to not take anything personally. The next tip is to be real. So I truly do believe that if you are genuine and honest and respectful in your outreach and your networking, that's going to shine through and people are going to want to help you, which brings me to my last intro point, which is to always remember that most people in general are nice and they've been in the position that you've been in. They've been unemployed. They've been looking for that foot in the door and they want to help. They might not always be able to help in the exact way you want them to or at the exact time you feel you need them to, but do remember that most people are interested in helping. It's just about being persistent and doing your outreach in a smart, thoughtful way. And of course, I gotta be realistic here with all of you as well. Most people will probably ignore you. That goes for job applications, that goes for LinkedIn messages and tweets and following people. Hopefully no one will just say, ignore you at an event and in person, which is why it's so important to go to events as well, because it's much harder to ignore someone who's standing right in front of you. But I do want to point out that most people are so busy and they just do not have the time to help everyone. So if you're super targeted and can make a great case to why people should help you specifically, that's how you're going to be successful. But you cannot get depressed or upset or too bogged down in obsessing over, one person or a few people or not getting a certain number of responses, because it's just a fact of the matter and a numbers game is that most people won't get back to you, and you just have to be okay with that when you're going into this mindset of networking. So let's just get started here right with the tips. Now, I'm going to start with a personal Twitter story. So when I graduated in 2010, I was unemployed, as mentioned, so I was actively looking for ways that I could network and grow my skill set. So I had volunteered for an organization that I had met the founders through a networking event organized by an internship that I was doing post-grad. And through the process of volunteering to do some social media outreach for them, I had found this woman, Katie Zach, who I started following on Twitter because I thought she looked interesting. And I saw at one point that she tweeted that there was a job opening at her company. So I looked into it and I thought, you know what? The role isn't exactly what I'm looking for, but the company is really cool. So I think I'm going to apply. So I tweeted at Katie Zach and I said, thanks for sharing the link, I'm going to apply. And she actually took the time to reply to the tweet and say, you know, that's great. And not only did she just reply, but she looped in the person who would be interviewing for the role. And so she mentioned that person as well and said, Rachel Joe is who you would interview with. So before I even submitted my resume, I had gotten on the radar of these two people at this company who probably clicked on my profile, read my bio, which had a link to my personal website, and they were able to learn a ton about me before I even walked in the door. Now, I also sent this final tweet after I submitted the application, you know, letting everybody involved know that I had submitted it. And I sort of put myself out there by tweeting at these people as a way to push myself to make sure I actually submitted the application. I'm not sure if any of you have ever had that feeling of procrastination or has said, oh, I'll apply for this and never gotten to it. So I figured, well, if I'm tweeting it to the world that I'm applying, then I better apply, which I did. So I did get the interview, and I didn't get the job, but I am still connected with Katie Zach to this day, and after we had this correspondence, she also told me about a meetup that she was organizing called Community Managers Meetup, which is a meetup for those interested in social media and digital and community management. And that became my favorite meetup besides FindSpark. And I attended a ton of their events and made so many great connections through that. And then Rachel Joe, I've actually stayed in touch with for this full this says 2 years ago, but this is actually about 4 years ago now. I've stayed in touch with her throughout the years, and she is now at Birchbox, and we have brought FindSpark to Birchbox because of her. We've also actually recently featured Rachel in a blog post we wrote about people who are doing really well on Instagram, and Shanika, who is helping us out, she's on Team FindSpark. She can share a link to that article. So 4 years later, just through this tweet, I've been able to stay in touch with both of these women, which I think is really cool and exciting. And so Twitter and LinkedIn is also just a great place to find people who have similar interests and meet up with them. I think it's a little ironic how it used to be sort of wrong and scary to meet up with strangers off the internet, but now if you do it in a smart way, of course, meet in a public place, it can be a great way to make new connections. So this is a tweet conversation from someone who I noticed had engaged with me on Twitter, I think just favorited some of my tweets, and I saw that not only was her name Emily, but she is obsessed with peanut butter in her Twitter profile, as am I, and I saw that she worked at Chobani doing social media, and I'm a big Chobani fan, so I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna tweet at this girl and see if she wants to meet up. And she replied, and a couple of weeks later, we were sitting in Peanut Butter & Co. having lunch. And, nothing crazy amazing has, happened because of this, but it was fun, and I enjoyed meeting her, and now I follow her on Instagram and that sort of thing. So this, I think, is a good example of why it's good within your profiles to put something fun. So my format for a good bio is what you're doing, what you've done, and something fun. So that's something fun. We had both had written that we love peanut butter. That was ultimately what really brought us together. Because remember, this whole career thing is about people, and people like to connect on a personal level in addition to on a business and career level. So including fun things like that can help make those personal connections. So, acknowledging your heroes is a great thing to do online. So, here, for example, I was just obsessed with some of these people. So, this is Evan Roth, who is a amazing artist who uses technology in his work. I had actually met him because I had a professor who brought him in to speak to my class in college. And then Alexis Ohanian, who's the co-founder of Reddit, he has spoken at one of our past Find Spark events, and Christina Zhu, who started a cool organization called the Awesome Foundation. So I just took maybe an hour to write a really quick blog post about these three people who inspired me with their really awesome talks, embedded videos of their talks, and when I tweeted it, I was sure to mention each one of the people included in the post, and 2 out of 3 of them responded. Pretty cool, right? And actually, Evan Roth, I followed up with him about, I want to say, at least half a dozen times since I saw him speak at Hofstra to invite him to speak at Find Spark events, and it's just hasn't lined up quite yet. He's always traveling or living in Paris, but I never stop. If there's ever an opportunity to invite him to a big event, I always still shoot him a quick email and tweet at him. And most of the time I don't get a response, but I do sometimes get responses of him just letting me know that he can't come, but I'm hoping my persistence will pay off. And here's another example of a time where I just, with no expectation, just wanted to say something nice about Alexis. Again, Alexis Ohanian, who's one of my personal heroes. I really love his work. And so I just tweeted at him when he had his book about to come out, and there was a hashtag for the book. It's called Without Your Permission. It's really great. So I just tweeted at him that I read another excerpt from his book, and I said, you should be a judge on Shark Tank, that you'd be really great at it. And again, no expectation. This guy gets tons of mentions, but he just happens to be someone who does do a good job responding to people. And so he responded to my tweet and ended up sending me a free early copy. It was autographed and had a personal note. I was very excited. And then because of this tweet, I also got on some mailing lists that invited some people to a small book launch party in New York, just because I took the 5 minutes to write this tweet and say something nice. Now again, these are the highlights. There are tons of tweets that I've written to people that never get responses, but I hope this gets you excited about what could potentially happen and the types of things you can put out there to potentially get responses. Now, networking is such a huge part to landing jobs, and it's so important to build yourself a strong network through communities like Find Spark, because so many jobs are gotten without an official application. They're earned through referrals. So I wanted to share a story of how I got 2 internships at record labels in Williamsburg one summer without applying officially. So I think it's extremely important that when you're networking and talking to people, that you know what you want and you're specific about it. It is incredibly hard to help someone when they say, oh yeah, I want any job in music, or I'll take any job in digital marketing, or, even worse, oh, I'm interested in lots of things, PR, communications, social media, digital. It's just incredibly difficult to help someone who is super vague. But when you're really specific, it's much easier to share opportunities. So, for example, when I was a sophomore, junior in college, I was studying design, and my goal at that time was to be a designer for bands. I wanted to make t-shirts and posters, I wanted to work in the music industry, and I was really obsessed with this goal. I had done tons of research into what record labels were out there in New York. I was applying to jobs online through, websites, through emails that I got, through official job applications for record labels. So I had a lot in my head about this industry and how I could potentially break in. And then I had a professor who is still a mentor to this day, and he's actually a Fine Spark advisor. So he always had guest speakers come in, and one of the guest speakers coming in at some point, his name was Ian Wheeler, and I saw that he was the founder of Partisan Records, a record label, and he was also doing work with the Knitting Factory. So instead of just showing up at the speaker event at class and, asking a question, I took the initiative to email my professor, who I had a great relationship with, before the class even happened, and I said, hey, I saw you're bringing in this guy, Ian Wheeler. I really want a job in the music industry at a record label. If there's any way you can introduce us before or after the event, I would really appreciate it. And my professor took this email, forwarded it right to Ian, wrote on top something to the effect of, this is Emily, she's one of my star students, she would love to learn more about what you do and potentially work for you. And so right there, I had this huge networking opportunity sitting in my inbox unexpected. And Ian then replied to the email, again, before he even came in, and he said, hey, Emily, great to hear. Where are you interested in working? And now again, this is why it's important to do your research and be specific and know how to talk about what you want to do. Because I was so obsessed with this idea of interning at a record label, I had bookmarked like a dozen or more different record labels. So I sent him a handful, and in the response, it turned out that he had a friend at one of the record labels that I had mentioned, and he offered me an internship at his record label as well, basically through email. So I did have to go into interviews for both of these positions, I'm sure just